I mean, QSR space is a super exciting space. It's fast. It's very dynamic. Things change literally in a few hours. A vast majority of Indian consumers don't even know what taco is.
11 years at Nestle.
Yes.
You've seen the coffee evolution of India.
No self-respecting Tam Bram is ever going to let an instant coffee brand enter his or her house. My apologies in advance to people who do. Everybody was making 30 seconders, 20 seconders. I made a 90 seconder, right? And we put it on television. We were shitting bricks. People are not trying hard enough to get consumer insights. I'm not sure our B schools are evolving at the same pace.
If you were 23 today, just out of B school, what would you do differently versus what you did?
Boss, ये क्या पूछ लिया?
Hi Kunal, welcome to the show. How are you doing today?
Hi, thanks Harinder. Thanks for having me here. I'm fine and I'm absolutely loving it. So super excited for the chat.
Yes. So Kunal heads what is undoubtedly one of my favorite F&B brands of all time. You know, I'm an obsessed Taco Bell customer. Like, I swear by the naked chicken. What a product.
Yeah.
And like, what a brand. So like, there's the weight of consumer expectations like mine on your shoulders. How do you feel about that?
Well, it's QSR space is a super exciting space. It's fast. It's very dynamic. Things change literally in a few hours. But I think specifically referring to the naked chicken taco, when a consumer thinks of the word taco, they think of that crunchy, half moon shaped product filled with veggies and meat, etc. inside. And these are people who know what a taco is.
Yeah.
A vast majority of Indian consumers don't even know what taco is. And in that kind of a context, Taco Bell brought in a unique taco where the whole shell was made out of chicken. Now that was something which was like a wow when it came, and it still is a wow. And because of the fact that it tapped this beautiful, it created this beautiful bridge between the unknown taco to the known Indian love for fried chicken. The product is loved by so many of our consumers, and you'll be interested to know it's one of our top sellers.
Lovely at that price point.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's very surprising.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So I sometime back I was speaking to Arvind, who leads marketing at McDonald's, right? Super tough space to build brands in, right? And consumer loyalty, the meaning of consumer loyalty, the meaning of stickiness, the meaning of trial, everything changes once you come to QSR. So considering the work you've done in CPG earlier, when you came to QSR, how was that transition for you?
It was, as they say, baptism by fire. To add to the overall fun, if I can call it, Taco Bell is the youngest and the smallest QSR player, and has still a lot of work to do in order to establish itself as as a brand which people would sort of immediately on their own think of. To add a little more tadka to it, the cuisine, the food we serve is not something which is very naturally demanded or known by the Indian consumer, although a lot of the ingredients are kind of very similar.
Yeah.
But it's, pizzas and burgers got built over the years. I mean, no one really built tacos for the Indian consumers. So it was, it was tough to sort of come into an industry where actually even for the established players, my view is there is no loyalty, right? I mean, people who probably go to, any of our competition brands, like, even 5-6 times a month, I won't necessarily call them real loyal consumers in the real sense of it, because, in CPG, loyalty has a very different meaning.
Yeah.
But here, many things can change the consumer decision. Something as simple as, for example, an unlimited beverage, right? Or a meal at a crazy price point. I mean, that can completely make the consumer move away from your restaurant, move the person to the other brand. And And considering most of these brands are kind of situated quite next to each other, the consumer always has that option of saying, okay, if not a burger brand, then another burger brand, or if not pizza brand, then another pizza brand. And what has actually made this game even tougher is the aggregators.
Yeah.
Now, sitting in the comfort of my home, I simply have to type burger, and there'll be like at least 50 burger players offering me value to gourmet experiences. And, all I need to do is just literally, select and choose, and I can have any burger. So, to my mind, it is now even harder to build a loyal customer base for or at least in the QSR space.
What's your mental model to building a brand in this space, considering if loyalty is such and if the consumer preference is such? How do you change behaviors, considering like Taco Bell, even the product is not native to our palate? How do you think about brand building here?
So, when we were thinking about how do we go about, establishing Taco Bell, firstly in the consumer's mind space. So, we started looking at the classical marketing funnel, and we said, chalo, let's see where our awareness levels are. And we realized that, we are 2/3 the awareness of any of our established competition players. And if I look at Spont awareness, it's probably 1/3. So, okay, let's try and figure out how do we build that. Now, of course, the simplest earlier model used to be, let's go on TV, let's build a film, put it on mass media, and aapka awareness ho jayega. Not that simple anymore. Of course, TV is still like the most widely used mass media media platform. But attention spans, this dual stroke, multiple screen behavior from consumer, even when they're watching television, it's just changing the game completely. So, we said, fine, let us first tell people about Taco Bell and what they can expect at a Taco Bell. Now, we first looked at the US for learning. So Taco Bell in the US is like, it's a cult brand established in 1962. People get married at Taco Bells in the US, right? That's the kind of role it plays in consumers' lives. And, we realized that if what we need to probably do to start off is to tell what people will get when they walk into a Taco Bell. And that's what we started doing. The fact that, if you look at a burger player, they're only selling burgers. If you're looking at a pizza player, they're only selling pizzas.
Okay.
But if you look at Taco Bell, we've got tacos, we've got burritos, we've got wraps, we've got quesadillas, we've got, rice bowls. So the first thing I said when I was in the room with my team, I was like, what? Actually, why don't we talk about the fact that even if you go to Taco Bell's 7 days a week, you will not have to repeat anything. I mean, to me, that's an advantage. Earlier, as a brand, we used to look at it as a disadvantage. But I said, to me, that's an advantage. You will never have to repeat a product in my store. Whereas if you go to a competition, you don't have a chance. You don't have a choice. You don't have a chance. You have to repeat something. So that's what we started talking about. Of course, we had to get our, the hygiene parameters going. It had to be at great value. It had to deliver amazing taste. And it had to not deliver health. Consumers don't want health from a QSR.
Absolutely.
Right? So there is no point in saying, hey, you know what, I've got like so much of lettuce and I've got so many veggies. People don't care. Right? They want a great tasting, light on pocket meal from when they walk into a QSR. If they wanted health, they would go to a smoothie bar or, somewhere else. They wouldn't come to a Taco Bell or any of our peers. So that's what we started doing. And we started going, we chose digital as our medium of choice. Our TG is there and we could also afford it. And then, we started sort of building a little bit of awareness, started generating trials through exciting combos. These things work in this industry. The one thing we did not let go, and that sort of differentiated us from the category, was over the last 2 years, we continued to bring in innovation. Innovation has been the hallmark of this category over the years.
Yeah.
But somewhere in the last 2.5 years, established brands have just chunked innovation and are just going behind 2-digit price points. So while we have to do all of that, I also have to give something at 59. But, we never stopped bringing in new products. So you mentioned the naked chicken taco. We tried bringing in a veg counterpart to it called the naked veg taco. Didn't work. Fine. You win some, you lose
Sounds
some.
good also, yeah.
Exactly.
What did it have? Like soy chunks?
It was basically an all-veg taco shell made of soy, protein, corn, and peas. It's damn tasty.
Toba.
But yeah, maybe as maybe the consumers also said toba, so it didn't work.
Yeah.
But what we didn't do was stop innovating. We just kept bringing in new products every now and then.
So what's your typical cycle towards introducing a new product?
We try and get in a new product at least 3 times, at least 3 new products a year.
When I say new product, I don't mean variants. I mean like cities, like period new product.
Yeah. So new products itself. I mean, new product like in this year itself, since April, we've introduced a range of beverages which are very, very differentiated. We call them twisted coolers.
Yeah.
We've already introduced one more. So we've strengthened our thick shake range. We realized that we've got the best thick shakes in the category, but no one seems to know about it because we never talked about it.
Yeah.
So we kind of revamped the whole range, brought in another variant, built, strengthened that category, and brought down the price. So now it's like flying off the shelf. And in the next, when by December, I have 2 more products lined up.
Very cool.
Yeah.
So the double-digit pricing is like a race to the bottom, right? Like, because everybody's competing with each other. Nobody's making money. The only person laughing are the aggregators. So how do you think about that?
See, the double-digit price point, yes, I agree. It's an irritating race to be in. I mean, something which you would ideally not want to be in, right? I can understand, having 1 or 2 product of yours in that price point because you want to get in a new consumer who doesn't know your food. They won't want to risk $150-$200 on something which they may or may not like, right? So for that person just to sample, you have a product at a double-digit price point, I understand that. Earlier, the double-digit price point existed through beverages, right? Or through desserts. But the last sort of 18 months, it has got into this, race, as you said, to the bottom, where it's like, a burger brand came up and said, you know what, we'll give you a meal at 99. Bizarre. You're basically talking about a burger, a serving of side, which is usually fries, and a beverage at 99. It's bizarre, but it flew like it just flew off the shelves like there's no tomorrow. Because as an Indian consumer, you were always used to thinking that a meal would cost you at least $150 to $200. Now suddenly getting it at 99. So it started sort of impacting the consumer numbers for other players, including us. So guess what? Now we have a meal at 89.
You have a meal at 89?
Yes.
What's it got?
It's got a taco or a burrito.
Taco or a burrito?
Yeah, it's got
full-scale burrito.
And it's got a beverage.
Yeah.
And it's got dessert. And then if you don't want the dessert, you want the fries, you add 10 more bucks to it. So you get a meal at 99 with fries. We call it meal mania.
And what do you think about like building brands on aggregators, considering that about a third or more of anyone's business is coming from there?
See, aggregators are a necessity in our lives these days. They've completely changed the way consumers behave. a lot of brands, including us, we're trying to get people to download our apps with varied levels of success.
CACs would be prohibitive. No?
Yeah.
There.
I'm not. Yeah, while see the economics of it works out, because if somebody places an order on my app, I don't have to pay the commission to Swiggy and Zomato. So that's a big decent chunk of savings. So I can either invest that into marketing or invest that into some offers which are exclusive to the apps, and that's what most people are doing. But I believe that because the consumer behavior is now so heavily ingrained to the two aggregator players, people don't want brand apps on their phones, right? Even if people have multiple brand apps, they're not using them, right? वो कभी download किया होगा because of some exciting exclusive app offer or something like that, but I don't think people are using that. So you got to live with them, and therefore you have to learn to grow with them and build with them. Can you build a brand with aggregators? Absolutely. But will it be cheap? No. Right. Both these aggregators are now at a space. I mean, one is listed, the other is about to get listed. So, they will have constant pressure of profitability. Gone are the days where they would say, let's acquire customers. I mean, they did that for so many years. But now there is this pressure of profitability every quarter. So they will obviously want to make money of whatever they offer. So earlier it used to be only visibility on their platforms. Now some of them are actually getting into saying, "Hey, we'll run your digital programs for you."
It means what?
I mean, they'll run your Meta or Google campaigns for you.
Wow.
Because they have sharper data available. So they're now realizing, I think, or they always knew, and now they are cashing in on the value of data. Crazy amounts of data. They know exactly. So their pitch to me would be, hey, I know Harinder loves naked chicken taco, right? And maybe I know that somebody who's, another friend of Harinder has never been to a Taco Bell. So I know which ads to serve to Harinder and which ads to serve to the other friend better than your digital marketing agencies, because I have got the data, and they won't be wrong. They won't be wrong.
So are you experimenting with them?
It's still at early experiment stages, because it's still a theoretical model. They still need to sort of prove it, show it, and sort of give us the ROI and show us show us what it delivers. But it can turn out to be something very, very exciting. The only caveat is that their objective will always be to build their ecosystem and their business, right? So there'll always be a bit of a question mark on their intent. Are they doing something to improve my brand, or improve my brand but on their platform, right? And thereby improve their platform.
And they're two different things.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. Super interesting. I really want to, because I think the question to be asked is, if somebody listening to this has a aspiration of starting a D2C, okay, let's simplify it. Somebody has an aspiration for starting a cupcake brand from her home.
Yeah.
And wants to build a brand, like a proper brand, not in the QSR format, probably on the aggregator, probably in around her geographical area. What would brand building look like for that?
So, this emergence of dark kitchens, that's super exciting, right? I mean, Rebel Foods, they are known, but there are so many of similar dark kitchen concepts which are now thriving on these aggregators. See, the biggest advantage they have is you are maximizing the utilization of space. As a dark kitchen, if I've taken a certain space as my kitchen, I'm maximizing it, because wahi kitchen mein I'm making, for example, rice, and wahi mein I'm making biryani, and wahi I'm making something else, right? Now, as a person who wants to, as your example said, open a or establish a cupcake brand, I mean, what these aggregators give you is reach, right? they give you trials, they give you orders, right? So you can definitely start to build your business by getting in orders and by, getting in, and if you're good, you'll get super high repeats as well. And then as you sort of grow, you will have that little bit of money to sort of say, okay, put behind, either plain vanilla CPC, to say was at least mera brand dikh jana chahiye, or, get into the equivalent of SEOs to say if somebody searches for cupcakes or cakes or, any of those adjacent phrases, my brand should show up. The opportunities are manifold on that. It's just that for someone who's just starting out without a lot of marketing budget, they'll need to sort of first build a little bit of corpus by getting in those orders, whether it's through word of mouth, or whether it is through repeats or through basic, very little advertising, and then sort of go on for something more. But you're like, because a large part of the aggregator experience you control, right? Aggregator ka kaam hai to give me the order. Now, what I do with that order is in my hands. A simple handwritten note, for example, can make the end consumer, can make the end consumer smile and positively ingrain your brand in their minds. Of course, your food has to be good. You can't sell not good food and then make up with these things. But these little things, and they don't cost a lot of money. Aap to pack karke to do gayi. So all you have to do is, for example, put a handwritten note inside, or, and those things don't cost a lot of money. And you get the opportunity to start sort of slowly building a brand.
I love this. I'm sure a lot of folks considering, because I think starting your own restaurant is also like a dream for many people. Yeah. I'm sure a lot of people are taking notes.
Yeah.
Let's change gears. Like let's go to and you spent 11 years at Nestle.
Yeah.
You've seen the coffee evolution of India.
Yeah.
You've had front row seats to that. You built one of the most loved brands there is in India. Talk about that experience.
Yeah. So it's I'll start with an interesting, funny, actually, anecdote. When I was interviewing for an Nescafe, I was like super excited. We were like, oh, this is a massive brand. This must be at least, 2,000-3,000 crores in revenue. This I'm talking 2010. And I was like super excited because that's the only brand of coffee you knew, right? And then I cracked it. I got the job and I was like, wow, this is my sort of big break. Now I'm in the big league. Right? I enter the Nestle office first day and I'm talking to my my boss and my team and realized the brand is 400 crores. What? And I was like, really? So I'm like, okay, what's the market share the brand has? 90% market share. Really? So basically, coffee in about 15 years back was a very, very small fledgling, category, beverage category in India. And you could sort of break India into two very distinct parts, from a coffee lens. There's the South, where coffee is known, it's revered, it's almost a part of tradition. But then that coffee is not instant coffee. They're not having Nescafe, right? They're having filter coffee, buying it from their local roastery. They're blending it with chicory. They're, using their filter, putting that thing, either overnight or very early in the morning, that, collecting the decoction and making a cup of coffee, right? So that market in any case was like, was out. I mean, we were an instant coffee brand. They're not even, no self-respecting Tambram is ever going to let an instant coffee brand enter his or her house. My apologies in advance to people who do, but I think, I've been thrown out of consumers' homes for even suggesting instant coffee to them. So that was out. So what essentially was the case was that Nescafe was a 90% market share in 20% of the coffee market in India, right? And hence 400 crores. So when we set about saying, boss, ye to chalega nahi, and the other number which my boss threw at me was 1:70. Now, can you guess what that 1:70 would be?
1:70.
Yeah. It was a coffees to tea ratio in India. For every 1 cup of coffee, 70 cups of coffee being consumed in India. So we were undisputedly, maybe even still are, a tea drinking country.
Yeah.
No doubts about it.
True.
So when we started sort of looking at how do we build coffee, we we'll have to build a role of coffee in people's lives. Now, when you meet people for consumers for research, every need state from a hot beverage was being managed by tea. If you're happy, you have chai. If you're sad, you have chai. If it's raining, you have chai. If it's too hot, you have chai. Right? With friends, you have chai. Akela, you have chai. To stay awake, you have chai. So, coffee really didn't have a role except for winters and exams. चलेगी तो चलेगा नहीं, एग्जाम्स 12 महीने तो हो नहीं सकते, एंड विंटर्स वे इंडिया इज predominantly a hot country. So we were actually brainstorming and we realized that this lopsided equation of teas to coffee at home actually is much better for coffee in offices. And like, why? So we went and met a few people who were working in offices. Like, why? Office mein kyun coffee pito? So we got a unanimous answer saying it helps us connect and meet people. It, you could just, if you have a cup of coffee, it just gives us that confidence. You go and strike up a conversation and you sort of talk to them and sort of helps you network, right? So like, okay, what if we bring this to home context? We married it to another sort of insight which was there that, with this urbanization and condominialization of living, people living in a condominium don't even know who their next door neighbor is. Right? So we sort of kind of merged the two and we said, ye coffee ka role banate hai. That coffee is that beverage which will help you walk up and connect with your neighbor. So we came up with this Know Your Neighbor campaign, right? We brought in, Deepika Padukone as the brand ambassador. We brought in Purab Kohli as our next door neighbor. We did those films. And it worked for us. The two things we did in parallel was we said we have to, because, if you don't know what coffee tastes like, then you won't really sort of appreciate it. So we started this large-scale sampling program. We would sample 2.5 million cups of coffee every year.
Wow.
Where all? Colleges, offices to early jobbers. So we would just, we built this beautiful coffee cart. We actually took inspiration from Red Bull. They had one of the coolest sampling vehicles. We obviously couldn't afford cars. So we built a trolley, which was shaped like a red mug. So the iconic Nescafe red mug, we sort of built it like that. And we took it to colleges. And we sampled. And the third thing we did was we told our global coffee bosses that was India mein hot coffee se sirf nahi establish hoega. You will need cold coffee to establish coffee in India. So we came up with this very tactical but sort of cold coffee led initiatives. We continued this. So we did this consistently 4 years, got some sort of movement going. This 1:70 became 1:50. Like, okay, that's massive. Started seeing growth. And then suddenly these cafes came and this whole connection role went to cafes. Now people started doing matchmaking in cafes and job interviews in cafes. Like, so suddenly these guys came in and repositioned us. I still remember one consumer interaction. I guess it hurt me so much that it stayed with me all these years. A consumer told me that, a coffee at a barista, at that time it was only barista and cafe coffee day, is like the Samsung or an Apple. And Nescafe is now like, those tier 2 mobile brands. I wouldn't like to name them, but like tier 2 mobile brands. And I was like, from suddenly ruling the coffee world, we've been like relegated to this. So, we got back onto the drawing board and said, ab kya kare? So we firstly said, okay, sampling won't stop. Cold coffee won't stop. Of course, we brought in a few innovations and said, we got in 3-in-1s and we got sort of pre-mixed cappuccinos. So, bhai, agar coffee nahi banani aati, to yahan tak pani bharo, aapka perfect cup ban jayega, right? So we did all of that. But from again a role in people's life, we had to do something now different because suddenly that social connection is gone. So we came up with, which I feel till date is possibly my best work. Is the stammering comedian Nescafe film. And the whole idea of Stay Started. Now, Stay Started came in because globally, Nescafe said it all starts with the coffee. It all starts with the Nescafe. And we said, India, where the first cup is always chai, it all starts with the Nescafe will never work. So we sort of took that idea and we said, let's build on it. And then we said, what if, because coffee, people said, bahut kadvi hoti hai. It's very strong, it's very bitter, acidic. Like, we've been apologetic about it all our lives. Let's become aggressive with it. Say, haan hai yaar. So we said, let's use this strength of coffee, bitterness of coffee as a positive to play a role in these youngsters' lives to say, boss, with a Nescafe with you, we will not let you stop what you've started. Right? And that's where this whole Stay Started as an idea came in. And that's where this, stammering comedian TVC came in. And I'll just maybe take one more minute on this film because we did many crazy things actually when we did this film. This was 2015-ish, 14, 15-ish. At that time, because of obviously media costs, people, everybody was making 30 seconders, 20 seconders. I made a 90 seconder, right? And we put it on television. We were
90 second on television.
Yes, we were
on GCs.
No, news.
God.
But we put the 90-second film on TV. We were shitting bricks. Like, boss, 90 second. Who's gonna watch the film?
Yeah.
The second sort of advertising rule we broke. The brand makes its appearance for the first time in the film after 60 seconds. 60 seconds तक आपको Nescafe दिखेगा ही नहीं. And, we were again, B-school, classical marketing, literally aapko second by second, first 3 seconds, ye hoga, then your brand, your problem statement, then your brand will come as a solution, and then whatever, right? And suddenly you're like, 60 seconds tak brand hi nahi hai. And the third thing I was very worried about was, this film was about a guy who stammers who wants to be a comedian, right? And we're like, what if people start calling us insensitive and, you're making fun of people who stammer and all of that? But he said, but eventually we all had this conviction ki nahi, yahi hai. So we put that film on air. And I think that campaign changed the fortunes of Nescafe in this country. Because I recall receiving messages from people saying, this just connects with us on so many levels.
Yeah.
This just, people were like, this gave us, goosebumps. It made us cry and so on and so forth. We followed it up with 2 more films about a struggling cartoonist and then like an RJ. But what that film did to the brand and to me as a marketeer, I think is something which is, still it gives me goosebumps. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that
there's no feeling like that, no?
Oh, absolutely. That was, I've always said as a marketeer, the best feeling is when you're walking on the road and you see somebody using a brand. Like, boss, that's victory.
Yeah.
Because you're fighting with so many brands for that purchase. If the consumer has taken out his or her wallet and paid for your product, that's victory as a marketer.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes, I'll put a link in the description for the ad. Please have a look. I really love both the films that he talked about. Please have a look if you haven't seen them already. But yeah, that I in your voice I could hear that excitement when you for me, he was like, when I launch a campaign and the first ad comes out, right? So what you normally do is you send it to a close circle. Most often it's internal, right?
Yeah.
So suddenly if you send an email internally, then you can see the opening notes of your ad playing in the entire building.
Yes.
And that would give you chill, right? And then imagine if you are doing cricket and suddenly the entire nation is seeing it. Like for those 30 seconds, everybody has seen your work.
Absolutely.
I think sometimes we don't understand what a privilege that is.
Yeah. No, absolutely.
Like it's privilege to have an entry into people's homes, into their lives, and often into culture. For example, films like this, they become a part of culture. They become a part of the history in the category.
Yes.
So I think I think as marketers, we do good work sometimes.
Sometimes.
Sometimes. Not often. Like most of the times we are annoying, but sometimes
Yes.
अच्छा भी होता है.
Yes.
I absolutely love that. Did you do other brands while at Nestle, or were you throughout? On
No, I spent a lot of time on coffee.
Yeah.
And then I moved to the global headquarters. But when I came back, I worked on chocolates. That was again very interesting because that was 2019. And as chocolates, of course, Nestle chocolates is distant number 2 to the numero uno chocolate brand in the country. Needs no introduction. And all this while in my career, I'd always worked or had the opportunity or privilege to work on brands which were leaders. This was the first time actually where we were a challenger. And I was actually privileged to work on a chocolate brand called Munch. Interesting trivia. Munch is probably the only chocolate brand in the world which has got a temple. Just for
a temple.
Yeah, there's a temple in Kerala where Munch is the offering to the god.
What are you saying?
Yes,
it is only Munch.
It is only Munch. Yes, Google it.
ESM के मजे हो गए फिर.
बिल्कुल. So yeah, I mean, so Kerala is like obviously the biggest state for Munch, but I mean it was exciting, but also terrifying to work on a brand of this stature. I mean, by number of units, it's actually the largest selling, or was at that time, the largest selling chocolate brand in the country. Even bigger than, certain other players in purple. And it was huge. And then I had Milky Bar, which had, a very different TG set and a very different problem. Consumer would come in as early as 7, 8, but leave as early as 9 also. Like, white chocolate kaun khayega? Right?
But I swear by my Milky Bar. Milky Bar is...
Yes.
Well, it's got a cult following.
Oh, yeah.
I think you rediscover it once you're into your 30s, maybe?
Yes.
I don't know.
Yes, you do. Yes, you do. Yes, you do. But, I mean, it still is the only sort of existing, growing white chocolate brand in the country. Many people tried, failed, didn't work. But what was exciting about the chocolate stint, honestly, was COVID. Because when COVID happened and lockdown happened, these categories, which are impulse categories, crashed. And suddenly we are sitting at home, ourselves terrified of what's happening outside in the world, and thinking, how do we make people buy chocolates? And that's where I think we did this very good work with Munch, where we came up with the Munch anthem for targeted at these 13, 14, 15-year-olds. And we, the whole sort of revelation came to us from our own experiences. When this lockdown happened, everybody started saying, oh, the housewives are working so hard. Oh, the husbands are working, helping them so much. Right? Oh, the elders in the house are, people were sort of saying they do so much. Nobody is talking about that 13-year-old. That 13-year-old was probably a nuisance. Udhar ja, idhar ja, safai karne de, whatever, right? We said, fine, we need to talk to these guys because they are also scared. But they are also sort of gamefully powering on. They are missing their friends. They are not going to school. They are also having to cope up with this virtual school, which is a first for, them also. So we came up with this Munch anthem and shot it actually and in remotely in people's homes, like, and it was like a very, very different experience. So we did that and sort of, that worked for us. For Milky Bar, we simply had to pivot and just slightly pivot on the fact that it's got the highest milk content in the category. Therefore, healthier.
Yeah.
And luckily, we got like a hockey stick type recovery. And that, it was interesting to sort of work on chocolates as a challenger brand.
You mentioned healthier, and in my conversation with Kitu, I asked him, I was like, what do you think about the food farmer? So where are you on that debate?
On the
food farmer.
See, there is no denying the fact that, while we may say if packaged food is A packaged food is healthier over B, the fact is, if anything is packaged, then it is obviously not as healthy as how, food can be or should be, right? I mean, of course, when you're buying something which is in a packet, you would have to believe that it's got some preservative, something in there which is there, right? Um, I think as over the years, many brands have been built on certain promises which, may or may not be completely accurate. And I think as marketeers, it is our responsibility to sort of, while yes, there is a lot of exaggeration which happens in marketing, and because that's how you tell a story, that's how you make an impact. But I think at the core, while both marketeers and organizations should probably very seriously start thinking about the kind of impact their products can have on the consumers, both positive and negative, and think about it. Maybe come up with options which are better, and they could be a bit more expensive. That's fine, but at least one should not give a beverage where 40% of that or 50% of that is just sugar. So yeah, that's what I feel. But if you don't do that, I mean, from a brand perspective also, I can understand if you don't do that, then the margins will be what they will be. So I think somewhere a balance will be created to say it depends on what you want and how much you're willing to pay for it. I think that's where that balance is going to come in.
Super interesting. I want to ask you, like, you would have led a lot of large-scale teams. What's your model towards hiring marketing talent?
So when I'm looking at hiring someone, obviously, basic level of understanding, skill set, of course, needs to be there. But what I actually look for in an interview is how excited that person is and is seeming to be with the possibility of working on my brand, right? Am I seeing that? And it's hard to do, but I think over the years, you kind of figure out when you're interviewing someone as to how excited they are or how excited they aren't, right? So, because, to me, working on a brand is a privilege. It's an honor, right? I am getting to make decisions on a brand that's not necessarily mine. I didn't build it. I didn't introduce it. Somebody introduced it. Some other people built it to where it is. My job is to sort of take it further, right? And not, I mean, at worst, not let the ball drop, right? So, it's a big responsibility and it's a big honor. If a person is not excited at the prospect of working on my brand, then I'm not excited at the prospect of hiring that person. That's one. Two, what does that person think about insights and how he or she thinks they can get those insights, right? A pet peeve these days, again, in marketing is that, people are not trying hard enough to get consumer insights. And once they get insights, they're not mining them to make it sharper and something which becomes that nugget which you can use as a part of your storytelling. काफी basic काम हो रहा है, right? And that's what is, to my mind, actually a disservice to the brand you're working on. To say, if you're not wanting to, go out, meet the consumer, get information, distill insight out of it, make it sharp, and then build it into your story, then then that's like a pilot saying, "Bas मैं सब कुछ करूँगा पर plane नहीं उड़ाऊँगा." So doesn't work, right? So
Yeah.
I think these are the two things I look for. What's your view on insights, and what's your view? How excited are you at the prospect of joining my brand or working on my brand?
Do you read a lot of marketing literature, like books, podcasts? Like, where do you get your marketing fix from?
So, I try and talk as much to marketing colleagues, peers, seniors. I read, I try and read newsletters from, people in marketing who I really respect. Rishad actually is one of them.
Yeah, sure, that's quite nice.
Rashi, which I think she's doing a great job with Performance. I mean, I really like what she writes. She's very simple, but easy to understand sort of stuff which she puts out. Honestly, I'm not too much of a marketing literature stroke book reader. But yes, I mean, I try and the one thing I try and do is actually visit as much as I can, visit a lot of campuses, and interact with marketing students. It just gives me a lot of joy, but it also gives me a lot of learning because they may not have the years of experience of marketing behind them, but or under their belt. But what they definitely do have is, a lot of questions which at times, make you uncomfortable. Like, boss, ye kya puch liya? Right? Or how should I answer that? And of course, nobody can deny their tech prowess. They are native screenagers or screenalials, as you would like to call it. And that's where I have to admit, it's hard to sort of keep pace. So that's my sort of go-to. Try and
spend time at campuses.
So
what's your general feel about, say, state of marketing education, especially at campuses today versus, say, 20 years ago?
I think we are in safe hands. If I look at from a point of view of these future marketeers taking our brands and sort of taking it wherever, I think we are in safe hands. I think.
Is it in spite of the B school educations, or is it because of it?
I would say it's a bit of both, right? It is, B school education is important because of a structured way of, learning and sort of understanding and going through your education process. But sometimes B schools could be guilty of being too structured and sort of too mechanical in this fast changing world where, you need to sort of evolve. I'm not sure our B schools are evolving at the same pace, right? And that's why I say, despite of that also, I think the kids today are significantly smarter than what I was at my B school. I was like a complete joker here, which samajh hi nahi thi.
In what axis?
In every which way, I think their understanding of what's happening around them in the world is much better. It's far deeper, right? And it's funny because, people say today's generation is frivolous. They are sort of on the surface. But I think that while that may be the case, in some cases where their interests lie, their understanding is way deeper. I mean, they've I think aced this concept of saying, this is my game, I'm going to really go so into it and understand it. We were more like, acha ye bhi kar lete hain, thoda sa ye bhi kar lete hain. Today's generation, if they zero on what they want to do or what they like or what excites them, I think they just get into it. And that's what, to me, is very exciting when I talk to them and, interact with them. Because that's what I take from those interactions.
But what do you not like about young marketers of today?
They do not have the patience. Brand building it doesn't happen overnight, right? Even in the yum world, there is a concept called SOBO, sales overnight, brand over time, right?
That's quite nice.
Right. Brand will always, it'll take time. Now, you can say the definition of time can change. Somebody can say, okay, Nestle was built over, 100 years, right? Today, obviously, I'm sure a new organization doesn't have 100 years, right? But you got to give it time, right? I don't think today's generation is patient. They want things to happen very fast, and their interest goes away very quickly. And then they switch, right? I mean, I've spent 11 years in an organization. I doubt there is anyone in today's day and age who's going to be even thinking about spending 10, 11, 12 plus years in an organization. And I know people who spent 25 years, 30 years in an organization, and they've done really well, right? So one is patience, which is there. Second is technology has probably made them lazy. Or आप जितना भी, how much ever technology you bring in, marketing will will still happen when you get out of your office, walk onto the streets, meet your customers, meet your consumers. It's not going to happen on the computer or with AI or with whatever chat GPT and all of that. So that whole rigor of which our generation had to say, okay, agar kuch, even if you had to write a brief, it was actually writing a brief.
Yeah.
And there were many drafts before the final written brief was finalized, right? Ab to matlab, I see kids like, and I tell somebody in my team that I want you to write XYZ things, I often catch them like going on to chat GPT and saying, acha, ye likhna hai, likh do yaar. They're like, boss. So that, because, while chat GPT may give you like a beautiful, well-written piece, what you're missing out is that, that joy of saying, yaar, ye maine likha. I think that's the other part.
Do you, like in terms of day-to-day marketing work, of course not at a strategic level, but at an execution level, do you have an allergic reaction to AI?
No, see, AI is here to stay.
No, at least for your team using it. Like, of course, like in the macro of it, of course, there's no debate.
Yeah.
But in the micro of it, say day-to-day, like writing a brief.
I mean, I would say it's on a case-to-case basis. Ideally, I would want my team to sort of put in that rigor and, that hard work and learn, because that's the only way they'll learn. But okay, if the situation demands that a brief has to be churned out in like an hour, then fine, use whatever tools at your disposal are there to do that. But I just feel that, while in both cases the brief could be similar, it's just that, if you do it yourself and, you do put in that hard yards, you just come out a better marketeer from that experience. Whereas when you're using AI, that सारी थिंकिंग या जो भी किया वो तो AI ने किया ना, आपने तो सिर्फ उसमें वो the only contribution you had was putting in the right prompt, for which I'll give you the credit, but then the others, like, ठीक है, it's okay. So I'm not like completely close to it, but I would any day prefer like a well thought out, properly written piece of document. Even if it's on a screen, I'm okay, but it needs to be like properly written and well thought out. I'm not sure a lot of that is happening these days.
Quite enjoying this. Just to close it out, I want to ask you one question. Like, if you were 23 today, just out of B school, what would you do differently versus what you did when you started as a management trainee?
That's yeah, that's a very interesting question. Honestly, never thought about it from this perspective, but I think what I would do differently is, to not jump at the first job offer which comes my way in a B school, and actually, work in an industry or an organization where I believe that I can add more value, not just as a marketeer or as a brand builder, or to become a CMO, but probably to make a better impact in the world. And I'm not talking sustainability, I'm not talking any of those things. I'm just saying, as a marketeer, you always want, as a human being, you want to leave your legacy, right? As a marketeer, your work is your legacy, right? So therefore, my what I would do, and therefore a hidden advice to 23-year-olds of today, is to say, when you get into an organization, when you pick up a job, it's a commitment. It's like you think a lot before making a commitment of the other kinds. I think you should also give it a fair amount of thought before making a commitment of this type also, and then stick to it, for God's sake. I think that's how I would like to put it.
It's a lovely way of closing it out. Thank you so much, Kunal. I really enjoyed this conversation. Thanks for sharing some of the work that you reference. We'll put it in the description so that people can refresh memories of seeing those films for the first time.
Yeah.
Thank you for the great work you've put out so far, and we'll stay tuned for more work and the launches you have on the fray.
Thank
Thank
you.
you so much.
Thank you, Harinder. I loved it. Thank you very much.
Thank you.